Welcome back to Inside the Ropes, and another very special guest about to join us, Andrea Lamont-Wills. Not often we have a professor on here, Andy, but we have Professor Lamont-Wills from the University of Southern Queensland, who's doing some groundbreaking research. Welcome along, Andrea.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me on your program today.
It's an absolute pleasure, and it's not your study that you're undertaking, which we're about to go into here, is not so much specifically about golf, but it's very important for all female athletes around, and not only athletes, but all females around Australia to consider what you're undertaking here.
Absolutely. Despite what we think, it's not adolescent or younger women who are most at risk of taking their own lives. So the study is looking at those women who are in menopause age range in terms of their well-being, but particularly about suicide. And it's, as I said, it's not the younger women who are most at risk of taking their own lives. It's actually the women aged 40 to 59. So we're really interested in understanding why that might be the case, and particularly the role that sport might play.
So that obviously fits into a large percentage of the women who play golf or occupy that age bracket. Would you like to see those who are listening to this and those around Australia more broadly get involved directly?
Absolutely. We want women who are aged 35 to 65, because that covers the pre-menopause and post-menopause age range. We need women who play sport and don't play sport to participate in our online survey, so that we can get a better understanding of perhaps how menopause and going through menopause, which is quite a challenging period for women, how they feel about that, how their mental health is, and particularly for those women who are playing sport, whether the camaraderie of sport can help them through this period.
And is that your, I don't even know if you're allowed to have a gut feeling when you're undertaking research as a professor, but is that your gut feeling that sport might be a beneficial aspect to what you're doing?
Absolutely. There's not a lot of research that looks at the relationship between sport and suicide, but we do know that sport is good for us. We know it's good for us physically and psychologically, and we also know that particularly people benefit psychologically from as I said, that camaraderie, that socialness of sport. So we have a sense that perhaps those women who do play sport, be it social or competitive sport, may be less likely to have mental health issues, so they feel less depressed and less anxious, and therefore less likely to take their own lives.
Can I ask you, Andrea, what prompted you to go down this path with the research? We were looking at the age range of the most at-risk women, and it just struck us that there's quite a lot of research and intervention focused on young people, suicide prevention and intervention on young people. But there's actually not a lot focused on middle-aged people, and that's both men as well as women, because this is an at-risk age for men as well. So we thought, well, what's happening here? How might we explain it? And of course, it struck us, and I'm working with a student on this who's a youngish woman. We both sort of looked at each other and said, well, this is actually the age that women go through menopause. And we know from the menopause research that women are at increased risk of depression and anxiety, which are risk factors for suicide. And there's a tiny bit of research that suggests that perimenopausal women, that is women going through the menopause, tend to have more thoughts of taking their own lives and act on those than women who are pre and post. So that's how it sort of came about.
Oh, this is a fascinating subject, I reckon, and one that we would never have ever thought about on a show like this had it not been for the work that you're doing. In and amongst all of the kind of mental health and the physical realities that these women are going through in this menopausal phase of their life, I wonder whether the domestic world, that their life for a lot of them changes as well. Their kids, if they're in that environment, grow up and move out. They don't have that. They're not the sort of linchpin of a home, if that is the environment they've been part of. And and they lose a bit of sense of self a bit and connection to something. And I wonder whether sports clubs and organisations might be really important in filling that void.
You're absolutely right. So it is a change. So it's a change we know it's a change of biological change period and physical, but also, as you pointed out, women are changing. They change from being mothers, typically caring for children, to sometimes caring for elderly parents. There might be a relationship change. So there is this identity change. And I think sport clubs in particular could play a really critical role here, because we know that, and something like golf, which I think is a wonderful sport because it's both social and competitive, and it can be at the same time. If someone was not having a good day and you're playing, around, it might be just in a group of, 4 women, they get a sense of belonging and contributing to something that might be missing in their lives. So I think that sport and sport clubs in particular can really be beneficial for the well-being of women and men.
Well, Andy and Andrea, I really appreciate both taking an interest in this. It's really important to us, and Shiloh Curtis, a big shout to her through her Vision 2025 work for putting this to our attention. I encourage everyone who's listening, if they know someone in their family or in their social group who has a female in that age bracket between, I think you said 40 to 59, Andrea, to get in touch with the University of Southern Queensland. We will put a story up on our website at golf.org.au of how to find that survey directly. Or Andrea, do you mind if we encourage people to email you?
That's fine. They can email me as well.
Beautiful. So thank you. So it's Andrea, Andrea.Lamont, LAMONT Mills, MILLS, at usq.edu.au. So that's University of Southern Queensland, usq.edu.au for any additional information you might have. But yeah, we strongly encourage people to get involved. Not often you get a chance to be involved with sort of groundbreaking research being done, and this is a great opportunity for those in the golf community.
Thank you, and thank you so much. And again, thank you to Shiloh. I had a great chat with her, and we really hope that we get some information that we can share back with your listeners as well.
Thanks, Andrew. We look forward to catching up on that offer when you've got your study completed. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome, really
Andrea.
interesting.
Thank you.
That's good luck with that. It's a really interesting study you're doing.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fascinating. I would never have thought when we started doing this 172 episodes ago that we would probably have ever had a conversation about the potential role that golf can play in dealing with, in this case, probably more specifically women, menopausal women, of course. But when you think about it, when you've seen people go through this and the sense of the significant change they go through and the potential for a game like golf to play a role in helping people get through these significant changes in life, it makes sense. I'd love to hear more about it down the track once the data's been collected and conclusions are reached. I think it's a really interesting study.
And I think also, Andy, when we have the opportunity to talk to someone like Andrea, it helps golf be at the forefront of that research so that we might get some golf-specific information to bring back to our audience that we otherwise wouldn't have had. So, it's a different route for us to take, that one, but I think it's really important. So thanks to Andrea.
The other thing too, Hazy, I mean, this goes to the whole notion of a club. We know what, in our mind's eye, we know what a golf club is. We have this is what a golf club is. But if a golf club can just broaden the spectrum and its own sense of what it is, it might be, these are the sorts of things that might become really important for some clubs, not all, but some clubs around Australia, finding niches within their own boundaries that will see them become more than they perhaps ever imagine themselves capable of being, and maybe sort of helping them survive, into the future. Who knows how important this sort of lateral thinking is going to be down the track.
Yeah, well, one of the things we've been discussing here on so many different levels, and it's high on the agenda for most Golf Australia conversations, is how to make clubs more the communal hubs that they could be,
Yeah.
rather than what they have
Exactly.
been. So, you know, if one woman around Australia is, you know, in inverted commas, saved here, because it's a brutal thing she's talking about. There's suicide rates horrendously high across the board at the moment. And we can get a group of women that age coming together at a golf club around Australia on a regular basis and alleviate a concern, well, that would be magnificent in my eyes.